Over to you.
Okay, super. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Bertie Hurtage, and I'm from the Crowdfunding Coach. Thanks to Central Surrey Voluntary Action and Beverly who put this workshop together. So I'm sure all of you represent a wonderful range of organisations working in the third sector. And today we're going to be talking specifically about how donations and rewards-based crowdfunding can be employed to great effect to help you address the funding gaps you might be experiencing or help you develop the operations that you want to run and to meet the increasing demand that I think so many of you are experiencing today. So we've got an hour, and within that hour, we're going to go through a short crowdfunding presentation, and there's going to be some time for a Q&A at the end. So do have a think about any questions you might have. Always good to know what you're thinking. So we're going to be covering an introduction to crowdfunding, so you'll feel comfortable with the subject. We're going to demystify this whole crowdfunding concept for you so that you're comfortable with it and that you understand what it takes to run a successful campaign and feel comfortable that should it be something you'd like to pursue, it would be something that you'd feel comfortable doing so. The three key stages involved in a crowdfunding campaign follow the planning phase, creating phase, running phase, and we're going to be dipping into each of these areas. So it is, I suppose, quite a lot of information in a short space of time, but of course you can always get in touch with me if you'd like to discuss a bit further the particulars of your own organisation and potential campaign. So, introduction to crowdfunding. Well, you will be, I suppose, very familiar with the different funding options and revenue streams that you employ within voluntary, community and social enterprise organisations. Typically, I think this sector has subsisted on a diet of grants, and it will be no shock to anyone here that the landscape of applications for grants and their availability is slightly drying up. There's less available than there have been before, as opposed to a restriction on government finance and there being less money available to support the community projects. So the other method that I think many of the organizations you represent are being encouraged to apply for is social investment. So going to a social lender or a bank and taking on debt to support your development or the sustenance of your organization. However, particularly in my opinion, when it comes to smaller organizations, we've got, let's say, for example, 100,000 social enterprises here in the UK, and 47% of these are under 5 years old, and therefore many community organizations don't have the revenue established to support taking on any debt. So I don't think necessarily that loan finance is quite appropriate for a lot of organizations in this space. One of the phrases that you might hear bandied around a lot is encouraging charitable organizations to become more business-like, to diversify their income and to become more sustainable. And this will mean by looking at different trades. So how you can sell products and services yourself. And this could, of course, include government contracts. And there is a movement within government at the moment to allow more VCSC organizations to tender for their business. And last but not least, why we're here today is to talk about crowdfunding. And I believe that crowdfunding has a significant and exciting role to play in the financial life cycle of all of these organizations, because there is a bit of a digital deficit in skills when it comes to smaller organizations. Crowdfunding is a digital exercise. It will require the research of networks, development of content.
Sorry about this, I can go to another room.
Marketing approaches, and so much more to explore. I think we might have just an unmuted participant at the moment.
But I've just muted everyone. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, it's really important information coming from me, of course. So I think the crowdfunding is what I'll talk to you today about, is how kind of significant I think it can be for all types of organizations. And really what it boils down to, crowdfunding in a nutshell is raising money online in relatively small amounts from lots of different sources, and lots of different sources is really the key here. And crowdfunding really is no different to any traditional fundraising that you might be familiar with. It's just that it's done in a secure online portal, which allows you to safely manage the transactions. And because it's online, reach a much wider audience to support you. So we talk about donations and rewards-based crowdfunding. So what exactly is this? So it means there is an opportunity to support a crowdfunding campaign in two different ways. People can, of course, donate to you because perhaps they like what you're doing for society or within your community, and they want to give and expect nothing in return. But crowdfunder.co.uk in particular offers the ability for you to use rewards, which is a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. And these benefits of some kind that I refer to might be products and services, potential experiences and events, sponsorship and membership opportunities, and so forth. So the reason why we offer rewards is because the average amount donated within the crowdfunding sector is £20, whereas the average amount spent on a reward is £50. So offering rewards is a way in which you can leverage further support and finance from your audience. And particularly when it comes to that terminology of encouraging charitable organizations to become more business-like, the use of rewards allows you to research potential new revenue streams that you can test in your crowdfunding campaign and see if there's an appetite for them and a demand, and which can, of course, be kind of structured into your standard business and operations moving forward. So what platforms are there? There are many, I suppose, different crowdfunding platforms operating, or at least a handful of them or so. And they are all raising money from the crowd, but they all do slightly different things. So crowdfunder.co.uk, who we're speaking about today, really is the generalist in that it supports a very wide range of projects, businesses, charities, social enterprises. It's a donation and rewards-based platform. You have that facility. And its unique selling point is that part of its business model is to offer match funding opportunities. So it works with different corporations and local authorities around the UK to make certain pots of finance available to community-based projects. So this enables local authority budgets to go further if the project raises money themselves, and then they have to contribute half to what they need, and corporations to use their CSR budgets in a very kind of real, pragmatic and useful approach for community organizations. So the other platforms you've got Space Hive on there. This is for usually civic crowdfunding, so the development of parks, of buildings. Kickstarter and Indiegogo are both quite different in how they operate. Kickstarter being a creative platform for magazines, board games, gaming, films. Indiegogo is a more kind of tech entrepreneur space where if you've got a new gizmo or gadget that you want to release to the market. Just Giving is really for charities. So perhaps you're running the London Marathon and you set up a Just Giving page for Cancer Research UK. So it's an individual fundraising mechanism for a charity. And GoFundMe is personal fundraising. So if you want money as an individual, to perhaps it could be an idea that you've got, or it could be that you've got vet bills to pay and need support, and you're going out to your family to do a rally round. That's the type of fundraising you'd use for that platform. So how does crowdfunding really work? Well, of course, you have a lovely idea and it magically gets funded once you put it online, which would be a wonderful idea. I would certainly be behind that. And crowdfunding actually I always include that slide because this kind of industry has existed for about 15 years. And I think since the pandemic in particular, people have become more familiar with how crowdfunding works, because with the estrangement of kind of physical communications and the growth of online communities, people became very familiar with supporting local businesses or charities or individuals and organizations through this method. So I think the understanding has grown quite significantly. But we're always trying to, I suppose, be clear that crowdfunding is all about the preparation and the work that you put in to identify your own audience, tell your own story. It's not actually any of the platforms that you use who will provide the audience. So the skill in crowdfunding is all in addressing that yourself and creating your own network. So before you launch, you know who you're reaching out to. So the logical and the kind of step-by-step basis is you'll add a project online. You'll create a page to tell your story of who you are, what you're doing, why it's important, and how it's going to happen. You will choose a target that you want to reach and a timeline in which to reach it. And typically, crowdfunding campaigns just run for 4 weeks. So it's quite a hard and fast method of fundraising. You can add a range of rewards you can offer to incentivize people to contribute more. And you can research your audience and network in advance so that you can be sure you understand who you're promoting to before you launch. And this is really just desktop research, building lists of friends and family, community groups, local businesses, key individuals in the area, local media opportunities, so that you've got kind of an audience to go to. You create a marketing plan, which is, I think, a jazzy word for just a timeline of 1 to 28 days, where your aim is to bake in to your plan a range of promotional activities from Monday to Sunday, be it on Instagram or other people's social media, mailing lists, newsletters, databases, to ensure that people are continually being driven towards your crowdfunding page. Once you've done that work, you'll launch your project, you'll share it and implement your strategy of promotion, and people in turn will be able to land on your page, donate to support you, or choose from your range of rewards that you've got available. And hopefully, once you've hit your target, then you'll be thanking your supporters and delivering your rewards, and the money is transferred into your nominated account within 7 working days of your project closing. So this is a really important slide because crowdfunding, I think, is one of those areas that people are quite intimidated by, because smaller organizations in particular, they're under-resourced. They don't necessarily have the time or sometimes the skill set to pursue these types of online fundraising. But crowdfunding is much more than raising money. It's actually almost like an accelerator program for your organization in itself, because you're really taking a lot of time and putting in a lot of research to better understand your community and how to tell your story and how to reach them. So with crowdfunding, why it's popular is because I think it offers validation. If you can get 100 supporters or 1,000 supporters, then that's a clear demonstration that there's a demand for your service in the area and that people support you. Crowdfunding, as we said, it's 4 weeks of promotion. So the natural byproduct of crowdfunding is that you're raising the profile of your organization and what it does, connecting with more people, and I suppose having a greater role within the community you seek to serve. So it is a social exercise where figuratively you're knocking on lots of doors, and some may remain closed, but some may open that will benefit your organization long into the future. And it's that kind of active approach of asking the question and trying to connect with the people and organizations and businesses that exist in your area, and to establish, I think, potential partnerships and a legacy that lives on beyond your 4 weeks. And similarly, the people who back crowdfunding campaigns are usually great advocates at the end, because crowdfunding is all about supporting other people. And there's a huge amount of pride which goes into supporting a campaign, and people tend to follow their progress on into the future. And in I suppose the world that we live in today, at the end of the campaign, you get access to all of the data of who supported you, and it will tell you very specifically in a GDPR strict fashion who can be contacted and incorporated into your audience into the future. So this whole kind of process, you'll learn how to tell your story, you're going to develop new content, you're going to really create this exhaustive list of contacts to start conversations with, to promote what you're doing. You're going to understand how to reach people, what they respond to in terms of messaging, and perhaps therefore what can be employed moving forward for your organization. And last but not least, extra funding. So actually this is I think a really, really incredible time for VCSEs, because it just so happens there are a lot of match funding opportunities, which we're going to talk about today. And this is, I think, the great strength is to move away from that process of grants, and kind of combined it with the crowdfunding process, where you're not doing it behind closed doors, and it's not just 1 or 2 people that assess an application and approve it. It's a whole community of people that are involved in that process. So there's a great big movement at the moment of pushing these funds towards platforms like Crowdfunding UK, to, I think, encourage more collaborative finance from the private, the public and sector and other philanthropists. So who can crowdfund? It's really wide ranging. So I think whether it's you're a charity, an author, a pub or a social enterprise, the process is always the same. So it's just about the kind of key skills that you use to put a campaign together that can be kind of employed in a very wide range of organization types. So ultimately, crowdfunding is a tool we can use to tackle society's challenges, because what it's great at is celebrating the work that many of the small organizations are putting in to, I think, solving the society's challenges that we face. And it's really good, I think, at promoting all of the hard work and the positive stories that I think are part of what's happening in the UK. And it's quite a nice antidote, really, to that kind of doom and gloom that we're fed every day in the news. Whereas there are actually lots of really good things happening to tackle these, put together by organizations like yourselves. So I thought I'd share just a fun example of a good crowdfunding campaign called Swim for Mid-Surrey Community Fridges. So this is an organization in Surrey to make, I think, to tackle the cost of food prices, to tackle food waste, and to make a range of community fridges which will provide either free or much cheaper food available to their local areas. And a couple of members from this organization, in particular Fiona and Claire and Sue, they did this wonderful campaign to actually take on the challenge of swimming the Solent, to incentivize people to raise money for their campaign. And as you can see, they raised just over £6,000 from 165 supporters. And this is a really nice organization called Santa Stork, who did a very successful crowdfunding campaign back in 2022, raising nearly £37,000 from just under 400 supporters. And this is a good example really of match funding, because this is actually quite a small organization. Really, it's a baby bank that typically addresses, I think, the cost of products for young families, and making a more kind of all of these products available to the families that need them through donations. And they did a campaign to deliver gifts and make memories for local children in need that proved very successful. And if we have a look at their page, we can see under their supporters tab that they receive money from the British Airways Better World Community Fund, £15,000. People donated Avios points, nearly 1,000. And even people donated their Nectar points, so £119 through Nectar. So Crowdfunder has become very good at finding ways that corporations can contribute to local campaigns. And that was one of the big projects recently, is I think realizing that we're all very familiar with connecting Nectar points, and there's this great glut of them that are unspent, which actually equates to a huge amount of money left that's idle. And this has been worked on with Crowdfunding and Nectar to create turn that back into cash, which can be used to support local projects. So the reasons why people support a campaign fall into these kind of three different areas. And I think it's kind of important to understand this when you're crowdfunding. So why do people support a campaign? They either like your idea, so you're doing something good in your community or for society as a whole, and therefore they're happy to donate, expecting nothing in return. They recognize you and want to support you as an individual, or they want a particular reward that you've made available. Many campaigns are very reward driven in that kind of transactional value. So it is often just an incentive to get something that you need or you like. So I think those kind of key points are what you need to make clear on your page to have a clear and convincing story, so that your idea is engaging and inspiring, that you're visible as an organization, as an individual on your page as well, and that perhaps you're able to collect a range of rewards either from the services you provide already or from the local businesses in your community that will incentivize people to give. And the key ingredients behind a project are to have a team. So I think I've used that word very loosely because I think it just helps more people you have, then collectively the wider your network will become. I think by no stretch of the imagination, everyone knows 20 people each. So if you've got 5 people who can assist you loosely on a campaign, then perhaps you can request that each of them make a list of 20 friends and family each, which would give you access to 100 people to start your campaign with. But a crowdfunding campaign needs a network, so that's why we do that exercise to uncover our audience before we go live, and you need a convincing story that people are going to relate to. So a few pointers about when not to crowdfund. So it obviously takes a lot of time. So if you're kind of too busy as an organization and don't have a kind of enough planning and time set aside to actually work on the campaign once it's live, then it's probably not a suitable exercise, so it does need pushing. You can't have an unclear or unconvincing story, no obvious public or supporter benefit, or you don't want to rely heavily on one group or source of funding. It's in, I think, the name of the game, crowdfunding. So we're looking back to that original definition of finance from a wide and diverse number of sources. So we're going to have a look at the 3 key stages of preparation: planning, creating, and running your project. And I think it's just important because I think crowdfunding is actually, it is simple. And I think there's a lot of common sense involved in crowdfunding, but I appreciate when it's a new subject, it's very confusing and it's quite hard to know where to start. So I think really these kind of 4 pieces of work help distill the important parts of what you'll need to do. And that is create a page, make a video, which is really a reflection of what you include on the page, just in a creative medium, as it were. Identify your network, so you understand who's going to make a pledge, and make a marketing plan of how you'll promote it each day. So it's not something that you need to do all at once. It's something that you can do over a month or many months. It's really up to you. But there's no obligation to launch a crowdfunding campaign or to go live. There's no upfront costs. So I think it's always good to start the process and you learn on the job, as it were, to decide how it's going to develop and use some of those exercises to make it a useful process for yourself. So the network map really is just the important thing. The storytelling bit is easy because you all know your organizations. You've probably already got the content on your websites. It's understanding who the different people are who are going to support us. That's important. So you start with your team. You can delegate, I think, amongst them to provide a handful of people of each, or to, I think, get together to have some ideas about who they can reach out to. But your approach will include friends and family, existing supporters through kind of mailing lists or company databases or newsletters, local media contacts, national media contacts, local key people and individuals, local businesses, because every business in this day and age has its own mailing lists and has its own social media presence. And it's our job as crowdfunders to, if we're doing something in our community, which is mutually beneficial for everyone, to find out how people can help us. And that could be at least sharing a post on Facebook about our crowdfunding campaign. Identify all the different social media groups and community groups that are associated with our subject matter and start contacting the administrators of that page to find out if you can post in there about your campaign. And any partners that you've worked with previously, talk to them to find out about what they could do to help. So really, I think this all lives just on a spreadsheet, and I've created a very good one, which is very clear and concise and enables you to track everything. So if anyone would like some support or assistance with that spreadsheet or access to this one, then you can just email me. I'll give my email at the end, and I'm very happy to share that with you. But the important thing is to share that kind of amongst your team and to build these lists so that you can actually build your confidence in that you've got a range of people on which to promote it to. And I think with that process as well, you can help record the status of your conversations, because you'll be emailing lots of people, and therefore we need to record who's responded. Do we need to send a reminder email? Have we had a call with them? And that's kind of I think those are the important bits. So network mapping, that's all done. And it's just normal business development stuff, creating lists of people that you think could help share or financially support your campaign. Creating your project. So I can offer you a link to get started, which there are a few different links you can use, but this one would take you through to a non-for-profit style campaign, and it will enable me to track your progress. These slides we will make available as well at the end, so you've got all of the information. But the the process is, like I said, there's no obligation to go live, and you do it in your own time. So you set up a draft and you work through it bit by bit. And that's just details of your organization and bank details, the story on your page that we discussed, choosing rewards, targets, and all that kind of thing. But there's lots of videos on the way and tips to really help you and hold your hand in that process. And you can certainly look at the other projects that have come before you to see how they've done it. So I think the really, really exciting, I think, match funding opportunities I alluded to earlier are led by the Aviva Community Fund. So you might have heard about this one already because it is being promoted at the moment, but it's up to £50,000 match funding for community projects. There's two different categories of projects it supports. You don't have to be both, you could be just one or the other. So one of which is financial well-being, so helping people take control of their well-being by giving them the tool to be more financially independent and ready for anything. Those would have been a great match for something like the community fridge. Or climate action, promoting healthy, thriving communities by preventing, preparing for, and protecting against the impacts of climate change. So again, I think whether that's to do with nature or it's to do with insulation, it's quite a wide-ranging fund. And similarly, you might have watched David Attenborough's brilliant documentary on the Wild Isles. And off the back of that, the Aviva team have made an addendum to their fund to make £1 million available for community projects called Save Our Wild Isles Community Fund. And that's up to £5,000, again, to support projects associated with education about the natural world, improving biodiversity in local areas, and I think the community's knowledge and engagement with their surroundings. The latest fund, the newest one, is called the British Airways Better World Community Fund. This is up to £15,000, and it is available to very broad projects, community projects, charities, social enterprises who are solving challenges within their community. So it is kind of I think quite a good one to have a look at. And last but not least, Sport England, if you do have any active style projects, then there's two different funds available. Active Together, which is just promoting physical activity in communities, £10,000, or Places and Spaces up to £10,000 as well, for the development of any active space facilities. So they are good funds, and I think the important thing to notice is that they're not exclusive of one another. The skill in crowdfunding is putting all of these funds together. And the really good campaigns will put in their applications early, and they'll get Aviva funding, British Airways funding, the Wild Isles funding, and Sport England funding, which obviously adds a great deal of money to the crowdfunding process. So there's two different types of raising money. I think I'll just touch on this because you might have heard these phrases already. You can run what's called an all or nothing campaign, where you set your target and you must hit it, otherwise your money's refunded to your supporters. Or flexible funding campaign, which means you set a target, but you don't have to hit it. You keep whatever you raise. And essentially, all or nothing targets, people are often mystified as to why on earth you choose that, but it's typically for projects that need a certain amount of money. And we actually promote it and advise it because it encourages the organizations to be really realistic about their target, because it's easy to go for too much money, and a campaign that struggles to get there isn't well received by the crowd. It doesn't have credibility or confidence, and therefore doesn't do well. So setting a target is really a balancing act between what's realistic from your crowd and what is needed to make the project happen. And in either case, you always start with the minimum you need and plan to overfund. But the good news for non-for-profits, Crowdfunding UK takes 0%. So normally their fees are 5%. So 0% is quite an exciting opportunity and very cheap way of raising money. The only fee that you do pay is on the payment provider. So all of the transactions, because the money is managed securely and handled by a company called Stripe, they take 2.4% of 20 pence per pledge. So if you raised £10,000, then 2.4% would be like £240, and that's just taken off the total of what you raise. It's not an upfront cost. So I thought I'd show you a kind of a project, not exactly Surrey, but close enough, within Croydon, because I think the National Literary Trust did a very good campaign and a very good page. So this is what is achievable for everyone, and I think is a testament to how to tell a good story. But essentially, the information you require are who you are, what you're trying to do, why it's important, and how it's going to happen. So you can see here that they've got a title at the top: help us give books to Croydon's young readers. You've got your project aim here: children are growing up in Croydon without any books of their own. Help us give them books and inspire them to love reading. You've got your video here. You can see that they raised just over 6,000 with no match funding, actually, from 40 supporters. You can see that they have subheadings, so it's not just a big block of text. You've got a range of imagery, which basically means that people can really engage with the content, that it's interesting and diverse and not just this kind of big block of text to navigate through. And this makes the page much more digestible. And you can see their faces on there, and they've got branding, and it therefore gives the campaign a lot of credibility and a lot of, I think, reality, so that people can really connect with it. And you can see on the right hand side, they've made rewards available, which are simply kind of sponsorship style rewards. Give a child 3 books, give 3 books to 3 children, get a storyteller to visit a school, a thank you video or a personalized case study. For £500, you will receive a personalized case study for your website, which outlines the impact your contribution has made, and much more besides. So I think hopefully that should be an example that you can revisit if you'd like to look at the slides again when we send them out, and it will help you kind of craft your own page together. But the rewards, I think people tend to worry about this. You don't need to offer rewards. You can run donation-only campaigns, but we know that it incentivizes people to give more. So whether you're an organization that has got a tradable element that enables you to offer rewards, then great. But if not, you can approach different businesses to supply the rewards for you, a whole range of businesses. So the categories of rewards: products and services, experiences and events, sponsorship and membership opportunities, and usually just a digital thank you. So not something to worry about, something to really just work on and think through, look at similar campaigns and decide what your audience might like in return to incentivize them to give more. So last section before we move on to some questions. So the running the project, really, as we said, it's just that having that timeline. And I think it's good to get this crowdfunding mindset for a community organization where you want to find out on the scale of the minimum and the maximum how someone can support your campaign. So everyone has a potential role to play in a crowdfunding campaign. And whether that is just sharing the project, offering a reward, or making a financial contribution, we know that those are the possibilities. So if we've made a list of all of those businesses, for example, then you reach out to each of them, you organize a call or swap emails, and request that they do one or all of these 3 things. And of course, you'll get better and better at doing it the more practice you get. So you'll understand how people respond to you, what they like, what they don't like, what approaches work best, what channels work best. So you can kind of refine and repeat your approach each time. But the trick is therefore to do all of this in advance, and then you have your 1 to 28 day timeline across 4 weeks, and you just put these different commitments to share the page, offer a reward, or make a financial contribution across specific dates. So you know, when you look at your plan, what's happening each day, that there's a range of activities baked into it that's going to promote your project. For otherwise, lots of projects will just launch, and that's the most exciting thing that happens. And then there's 4 weeks of absolutely nothing, where no one's promoting it, and therefore no one's landing on the page, and therefore no one's making a contribution. So you can manage your own kind of fear and success in this way. And the confidence instilled in the campaign will be in having this kind of depth of commitments booked in before you launch. So last bit, a few things so we're on the same page. You do want to invest as much time as you can in the process. We know that it's for a crowdfunding campaign, but the benefits, I hope you appreciate, are much wider than just raising finance here. So the more preparation you do, the more confident you'll feel and the more success you'll have. It is a social exercise, so you can't do it in isolation. You've got to talk to people. And the more personal and direct your approach to individuals or businesses about your campaign, the better it will be received. So there isn't a community of people looking for campaigns to support. No promotion means no page visits and therefore no pledges. So you've got to get it out there. And we don't want to just rely on one group or individual to fund a campaign. The strength of it is in, I suppose, many baskets, as it were. We don't put all our eggs in one basket. We want it to be a community campaign and to get as many people behind it as possible. So if you're on Instagram, do follow me at _crowdfunding coach for more tips. And if you would like to have a conversation, you can email me at bertie@thecrowdfundingcoach.org. If you'd like support with your campaign, I typically run a one-to-one session, which is just £50 for an hour, or we can do an individual crowdfunding workshop, which is £100 for an hour. That's a 2-hour session, and it includes a further one-to-one afterwards as well. So that's crowdfunding in a nutshell, and I'll bring us back to Beverly. And please, I'd love some questions if you've got them.
Thank you very much, Bertie, for that most comprehensive and explanatory presentation. So now I'd be very interested to know, I'm sure Bertie would, who has actually run a crowdfunding campaign. If you can just raise your hand or let us know. And also, I'd like to obviously take your questions to Bertie. So firstly, has anyone here actually run a crowdfunding campaign within their organisation or participated in a crowdfunding campaign in a previous organisation, maybe? No one? Oh, that's good. So we've got probably lots of questions then. So, I mean, Bertie's covered an awful lot of material in that time. Is anybody, first of all, thinking of doing a crowdfunding campaign in the near future? Francesca, were you thinking of doing a crowdfunding campaign? Don't forget, everyone's on mute, so please unmute yourselves.
Well, I really appreciated, first of all, hearing what you said, Bertie. That was so sort of accessible. One question I just wanted to quickly ask. Is there any tax taken off of contributions made once you got your sum in from the government?
So I think it depends on the type of organisation that you are.
Okay, we're a community interest company. So it's a not-for-profit, but you know, any profit that there is that we find, we have to bring back into the company. But that's an interesting question.
Oh yeah, it is a very interesting question, and also a very difficult one to answer, just because I think it does completely vary in every case about what you're crowdfunding for, and what the intentions are behind it, and the organisation and setup, as you said. So unfortunately, it's not an area that I can advise on the tax part of things. So what I always say is just it's best to speak to an accountant about how to deal with the money that you raise, perhaps before you raise it. But I love your background. It looks like you're peeking for a bush, perhaps a really nice house.
Well, we're all about nature and helping people access it when they're not in a position to. I mean, the thing we're working on right at the moment is a group of groups of refugees that we want to provide these nature hikes to. But for example, the big problem at the moment is getting transport.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, well, I'm wondering, you know, what I'm also picking up from you, though, is that you need to plan ahead. So you need at least a month to plan this. So I'm looking at a more immediate need, but it's the kind of thing that I'm, you know, thinking of.
Well, I think of course, I think the planning is very important, but I do think that there is also, when there's a need and an opportunity, because it's Refugee Week coming up on the 19th of June. So there's a lot of, if there's a time to crowdfund for refugee projects, it's then, because I think that's when everyone turns their gaze towards that particular area. And the types of funds are quite climate and nature specific at the moment. So I think you can crowdfund many different times, and sometimes the process of putting together a campaign will educate you, really kind of put you in a good place for the next one, because it's the best way of learning. And the crowdfunding pages themselves you can do very quickly, and a basic plan as well of promotion you can do quite straightforward. So it is a good opportunity. Best obviously to have as much planning as you can, but you could put one together in time for a Refugee Week if you wanted to.
And on a separate note, Francesca, of course, Bertie's already mentioned the Aviva Climate Action Plan. They've got two campaigns. Of course, Aviva is based in Mole Valley, their HQ. So your proposition, I know, is all about preserving that Mole Valley and the environment, the area of outstanding natural beauty, etc. So that would also be a good one for you to perhaps go for in terms of raising the transport.
Yes, thank you. I didn't know about the Aviva Fund, so that's really helpful too.
I think, okay. I think Bertie mentioned his presentation. It also has been in the funding newsletter, but maybe now with the crowdfunding presentation today, this is
absolutely brings it to focus. Thank you. Yeah.
So other questions from people? Janice, I mean, I'm just thinking about, sorry, I'm picking on people now, but Janice, I'm just thinking about you. I mean, Bertie mentioned the Sport England Active Together. Janice is CEO Cheer, and Cheer is about helping people with Parkinson's and also other people they also support in their community. I mean, I've sent you actually in the past, I know, Janice, we talked about last week, I think, about a project to do with activity, and you were thinking about that. But there was also, some of those were equipment led. But for project-led work, you could look at maybe the Sport England one, which again was also in the funding newsletter. And now you have perhaps a greater understanding of crowdfunding. How do you feel about that?
In fact, we have actually got crowdfunding as one of our possible fundraising strategies, but because we haven't done it before, it's sort of gone a bit on the back burner. So this has been really, really helpful and has given me lots more information on what we need to do. But I think our biggest thing is that we haven't really got a network. This is the big thing. We don't know, we haven't got people we can go to just in front of us to say, help us with this, help us with that. So that's going to be a lot of work, I think. Yes. But also, we're on the Elmbridge Community Lottery, and I think we might perhaps try a little pilot and start there, because we've done nothing on that. to try and get people to support us through that. So maybe we can start with that as a little sort of pilot to see how we go. We're trying to build up some networks of supporters and then take it from there. But yes, I think it's a really good idea, and we definitely need to try and do it in the future.
Yes, and Bertie mentioned that 360 degrees of looking at all those audiences you can tap into, from the partners to the businesses, etc.
Yeah.
You want to talk a bit more about that, Bertie, because that's, you know, I think this is the nub of it when you're actually trying to raise money. It's no point just putting that out and expecting the work to be done for you, as you said, Bertie.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the hesitancy, but I wonder it's not really a chicken and egg thing. It's we all know that we need networks, so crowdfunding presents you an opportunity to build one, and I think the research techniques that you employ to contact people and make relationships is just exactly how you kind of build that audience block by block. And I just wonder as well that there are a lot of, I think you could advertise for more volunteers who perhaps are looking for more work experience in particular, that could help with that exercise of making lists of businesses or collecting information for your page, to make it all a bit more bearable.
Good idea.
Well,
That's
someone
a brilliant
suggested,
idea. And it's made me think of more possibilities, because we do things with schools. So that's a huge network and audience, for events for our older people. And we've just, from the volunteer recruitment fair, we got in touch with somebody who works for BP, who's sorting out their portal for their CSR for volunteers. So there's all that network, you've made me think of all these different possibilities. So that's great. Well, thank you.
I wonder, maybe a good example is a few years ago, I did a crowdfunding campaign for my village hall in where I live in Cornwall, in Port Isaac. And Port Isaac's village hall does not have any networks really. But what we did for the campaign is that there's lots of businesses in there, lots of B&Bs and hotels, restaurants, artists as well. So we did that kind of more raffle style campaign where we contacted all of the businesses to get products or experiences that we could sell through the crowdfunding campaign. And part and parcel of offering your product experience or work of art was that you promoted it too. So you can, I think, by spreading your net quite far and just having those conversations, cheer sounds incredible. And I think lots of people see the value of that. And it's I think it would be a hard one to turn down if you were able to make that content and just tell them a little bit about what you're doing. But thank you for your contribution. Yeah. Much appreciated.
Thank you. That's excellent. I feel all bouncy now.
Yeah, so I think a brainstorm, a good idea. Brainstorm. Hub and spokes, all the different audience groups you can think about, and then as Betty says, then put building blocks onto each of those.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Bertie? Other people thinking of also considering a crowdfunding campaign? I assume there might have been at the back of your mind for you to attend this presentation this morning. Okay. All right. There's no more questions. I'm going to just wrap up a bit. No more questions from anyone? I can't see anything. No. Okay. Right. So if you stop sharing, and I'll share my screen then, or I can do that now. So just to say where we are. So first of all, very big thank you, Bertie, for a very excellent presentation. Thank you, Bertie. Very, very nicely laid out, very clear for people to understand, because a lot of people are coming into this new. So very much appreciated. So this is our third funding surgery of the year. We normally do 4 a year. However, the November one will, as usual, probably be funding fair that from local funders explaining what they're doing for next year. There's a possibility I might run one in September, but I'd like to hear from you what you want. So please do drop me an email. Most of you got it. My email is there on the screen. What subject matter you would like that would support you in your roles. That would be very good to hear. And then, this presentation will be on our website within the next couple of days. If Bertie's okay with this, also I can send out the slides separately. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I will send those to people who registered as well, who didn't manage to attend today for whatever reason. These things happen. So when you go onto our website, so give a couple of days for it to be posted. I'm not in charge of the website, so I request that. So it will, if you go to the funding page and then go to training and workshops on the right-hand side, that's where you'll find the presentation. Okay, so I thought, I think this is an area that, as Bertie said, a lot of small organisations which are represented here today don't often venture into. I know that my work with supporting you with funding has been very much about trust and foundation funding. And I do think there are projects and opportunities and campaigns that can really lend itself to fundraising. So I would urge you to consider this, discuss this with your teams, your boards, and also share this presentation, which is why I posted it on the website and sent it out. So you can share this with your trustees and other team members so they have an understanding. Bertie is also here as an expert for you to contact, and he can support you through this process. I'm not an expert in crowd fundraising at all, so Bertie is the person to contact, and his details have been shared, and again will be on the website in the presentation. So once again, thank you very much, Bertie, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you, Beverly, and thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.